He was suffering.
It was not anything to do with COVID?
नहीं,
No, sir,
COVID
COVID
नहीं
से पहले ही था सर उनका.
Harsh Gupta, sir, can we start?
Please go ahead.
Rupini, madam?
Sir.
Yeah, please, you can start. People will join, no problem.
Okay, sir. Give me a second, sir.
No problem, please.
I have a request, please don't read that entire CV. You can just abridge it.
Sir, please, sir, please, let me, please allow me to speak. Yeah, very good evening to everyone. Professor Harsh Gupta, President GS Geological Society India, and Shri Rajendran ji, member, and then Dr. DM Banerjee Saab, and Professor R. Bhaskar, Chairperson Geological Society of India, Regional Center, Delhi. Today's speaker, Dr. Rasik Ravindra ji, all my respected senior colleagues and fellow colleagues. A very good evening to one and all. And I, Professor B. Rupini, welcome you all to this academic lecture series. As a part of lecture series, today we are going to have a popular lecture titled India's Maiden Expedition to South Pole. I'm taking this opportunity to introduce today's speaker, Dr. Rasik Ravindra ji. He's very humble, and then he's not allowing me to speak. The only one thing is he is a former director, National Center for Polar and Ocean Research between 2006 to and 2012. After putting 35 years of active service with the Geological Survey of India, when he worked in various geological investigations in Rajasthan, Northeastern region, Himalaya, Bhutan, and Antarctica. And he is a polar scientist, held the 9th Indian expedition to Antarctica in 1989, and the first Indian expedition to Arctic in 2008, and the first Indian South Pole expedition in 2010. He was the leader of the task force constituted by the Government of India for selection of the site for India's third research station in Antarctica, and the task force for environmental upkeep of Maitri station in Antarctica. He holds the credit of overseeing establishment of Bharti and Himadri, India's polar research stations in Antarctica as well as Arctic region. Sir also initiated the Himalayan Cryosphere program of Ministry of Earth Sciences that saw the commissioning of that Himanshu research station in Himalaya. Sir also positions of Deputy Director General of Geological Survey of India. Most people must be knowing about this, and also he has been the chairman of Asian Forum on Polar Sciences, DST Committee on Dynamics of Himalayan Glaciers, and also he was nominated to meeting of the experts for the IPCC meeting held in September 2019 in Monaco. And Sir is also a recipient of National Mineral Award, National Award in Polar and Cryosphere, and then also Sakar Medal for the International Coordination, IGU Gold Medal, Antarctic Award, and Lifetime Achievement Award by Paleontological Society of India and Professor West Oratory Award, among others. Sir, we welcome you to this lecture series, and kindly deliver your lecture, sir. We are very much enthusiastic to listen to you and then also learn and then update ourselves. Namaskar, sir. Namaskar.
Thank you, Dr. Rupani, for that very elaborate introduction. Though I was feeling rather embarrassed about it because most of my seniors are here, and, and they know me very well. But anyway, thank you very much. Respected Dr. Gupta, Dr. Banerjee Saab, Bhaskar Saab, and my colleagues, seniors, and friends. It's always a pleasure, to talk to you about some of the things that we have cherished all through of our lives. So I'll share my screen with you all. Is it visible?
Yes, sir, you can make full screen.
Okay.
It is beautiful.
Fine. So this is the topic is India's maiden expedition to South Pole, and most of the listeners must be knowing there's a very delicate difference between Antarctic and South Pole, because whenever we talk of South Pole, people generally take it Antarctic, but we must understand that there's a very vital difference between the point that is South Pole and a huge continent which is Antarctic. So my talk basically is not a scientific talk, it's more of a adventure talk or a travelogue. And I wish to take you all to the South Pole and then bring you back with the sweet memories that we had in that continent. So there's a very interesting quote, that why do some men or women desire such things with urgency to do some things, regardless of the consequences? And nobody has forced them to do that. It comes from within. No one knows. But the answer to this, it was given by many people. Among them, Vichendri Pal is there, Anupam Sinha is there, the lady who climbed Mount Everest with the amputated leg. So there is certain feeling in a human being, that you want to do something and achieve something. So it is because of this, in bringing mankind's desire that we try to do things which are very uncommon. There's a very nice book, written by the gentleman. It's called Terry Gerard, and he was a young man of about 21 years old when he joined the Scots' first expedition to Antarctic in 1910 and 11, nearly 100 years back. And this gentleman couldn't reach South Pole because he was in the retreat party, second party. But then he visited South Pole after about 30-40 years to bring back the bodies of that tragic expedition, because all those people, those who had gone to South Pole in Scott's expedition, they lost their lives. He has tried to give the answer of this particular quote that I gave you. And he says in his book, if you have the intellectual passion and the physical strength to realize it, because you may have many intellectual ideas, but sometimes the physical strength doesn't allow you. But if you have it, if the God has given you, go ahead. Whatever you achieve would be a contribution to the knowledge to the mankind. And he has added that even if you bring a penguin egg, that also would be a big achievement, because you will know so many biological things about the penguin. So it is because of this, inherent desire of the mankind that people do go to such isolated places. And Antarctica, most of you know, it is it has got a awesome geography. It is inaccessible. It is inhospitable, and practically there is no human population there. And it is not governed by any sovereign control. But all superlatives you can imagine, in wind, in temperature, in ice thickness, everybody is there. Everything is there. You can see an image of the tents that undergo a wind speed, blizzard of about 100 nautical miles. You can see what happens to a wintering person who comes out of his tent. And you can also visualize the thickness of the ice, which is more than 4.2 kilometers at the center of this area. And see, this is a cross section from the West Antarctic to East Antarctic. And you can see how much is the quantity of the ice which buries the whole of the landscape, whole of the region. And this continent, right from 1578, people did try to explore it, did try to find it, because there was a concept with the Greeks that if we have the Arctic in the north, we must have something in the south to balance it. That is why they called it anti-Arctic or Antarctic. So the earlier expeditions, if we go back to the history, in 1578, and Drake did that. Then Captain Bouvet was there from France. He did it in 1738. But the most important expedition was from 1768 to 1778, for nearly 10 years. This gentleman, Captain James Cook, he went around all around the continent, but he couldn't reach the continent. And ultimately, he came back and he gave a statement that this is a God-forsaken continent and it will serve no purpose by mankind if you even try to go there. Now, that was a very big, roadblock. After that, nearly for about 100 years, nobody went to Antarctic, thinking that it is only a God-forsaken place, only an accumulation of ice, and no purpose will be solved by mankind. But there were a lot of, whaling stations which cropped up during this time because of the seals and because of the whales, and people did want to take the oil from seals and whales. And ultimately, in 1820s and 1895, people did venture, and then they could see, yes, something like Mars is there, and Antarctic does exist. So this is a continent, is a huge continent, 12 million square kilometer, size of India and Australia put together, but only in summer. In winter, it doubles. It's a fluctuating continent because the ice all around, sea ice, all around the continent, it gets clubbed with the continent, and the size of the continent doubles. It becomes nearly 20 million square kilometer. That's why some people call it the fluctuating continent. And these spots that you see here, these are two Indian stations, Dakshin Gangotri and Maitri, and this is our new station, Bharti. Let us talk something about these two men. You know, the history of Antarctica cannot be told you without these two gentlemen. One is the Amundsen, and the second is a Scott, Robert Falcon Scott. Now, it's a very interesting episode. You know, if you go back about 100 years back, in about 1910, these two people, they started a race to the South Pole. Scott started first. He believed that in his manpower, he took his very dedicated team of 6 to 7 people and started moving towards South Pole without knowing that a Norwegian, Amundsen, had already started it. But Norwegian, actually, this gentleman Amundsen, he was headed towards the North Pole. Reaching half the state, he realized that some people have already reached North Pole, so he took a U-turn and he started his journey to the South Pole. And then when Scott reached our South Pole, he saw the flag of the Norwegians flying in the South Pole. And you can imagine the disheartenment, disillusion that happened to this team. And he wrote in his diary a very touching story. He said, "This told us the whole story. The Norwegians have forestalled us and are the first at the pole. It's a terrible disappointment, and I'm very sorry for my loyal companions." He had a very good team. You know, Dr. Wilson, a botanist, a doctor. Many thoughts come and much discussions we have had. Tomorrow we must march on the pole and then hasten home back with all the speed we can compass. But unfortunately, this return journey was a very, very tragic story, and this team could never make it back. On 21st March, you know, they were left with nothing to eat, only biscuits and some tea. And one of their team members, you know, Wilson, who was a doctor, he knew that the end is very close, and he had frostbite in his feet. And he also knew that if he stays back with the team, the entire team cannot go back. So he just said to them, "I'm just going out for a walk." And everybody knew that he's just walking into the open just to die and to not hamper the team's return to the mainland. And everybody with their, you know, swollen eyes, they didn't even have the courage to say bye-bye to him. And that is how the Wilson was lost in the blizzard that was passing in the wilderness of the Antarctic. And the last line, which Scott wrote on his diary on 29th March, are still more pathetic. You know, he wrote, "There has been nothing to eat for past 3 days now. I'm not even able to write." But he had a pencil, something, he could scribble something. "End is not far away. For God's sake, take care of our families." These were the last line, and then they were all buried in the snow and ice of Antarctica. And it was long back when that gentleman, small boy of 21 years age, Cherry Gerhard, he went back the same spot to get their bodies, and he could also trace this diary. And then the whole story of the Scots expedition came back to the knowledge of mankind. But this was not the first trip to the South Pole. You know, before this, in 1902, Scott had tried once again to go to the South Pole. He had come just near to the 800 kilometers short of South Pole, but then he had to withdraw because of the frostbites and bad conditions of all his team members. And one of the team members, Shackleton, you know, he was so disappointed, and there were certain issues of leadership also. So he took his own expedition to South Pole. And in 1908, that was 2 years before Scott's final expedition, and he was just 180 kilometers short when he also had to come back. This Shackleton's story is very, very, you know, different, and one must go through the book that his granddaughter has written. You know, it's a story how this gentleman came back to the mainland, assembled his strength, and withdrew all his team in good condition. None of the people had died. He left the team in Antarctic, went back, brought another ship, and took everybody back without losing anybody. So there's a lot of discussion in the explorers' world to give due credit to Shackleton, who could reach very close to the South Pole, 180 kilometers, but also save the entire team. So it's a big thing for him. And very recently, you know, Shackleton's ship has been traced on the seabed. You can see here this picture, and this is buried in the Weddell Sea site, but this ship was recovered just about a month back from the seabed. So when you reach the South Pole, you know, the first thing you see is this plaque, which remembers and gives, you know, due credit to these two people, Amundsen and Scott, along with their team, you know, which could land into the South Pole. But they celebrated one only the Amundsen. So this is also one of the things, that every man who goes to Antarctic from any nation, any age, he has this, ambition in his life that he must touch South Pole. He must go to the South Pole. And we were lucky that we could realize this dream. South Pole has got a very huge, value, both from the environmental side, from scientific side, and also from the, point of view of the adventure. So now this dome that you see, this was existing till 2009. And this team that you see here, the team from the US Antarctic program, this was sent there in 2009 to dismantle this dome. And this dome was an iconic dome. Anybody who could visualize South Pole was always thinking of this dome. But then when we went there, this dome was not there. And instead of that, this building was there. A solid concrete and steel building was there, South Pole building is there. And this is the entry to the old dome of South Pole, from here. Now, why South Pole is so important? It's not only from the adventure point of view. There are certain other reasons also why people try to go to South Pole. So you can see this ceremonial pole over here. This pole, it celebrates the feat of the 12 countries, those who reached the South Pole during 1957-58 International Geophysical Year. That was a year which actually started the polar exploration. After this IGY of 1957 and 58, there were several of the traverses taken in the Antarctic. Many stations came up all around the fringes of the Antarctic, and it was the foundation of the Antarctic Treaty. So after this, landing of these people in the South Pole of 12 countries, the Antarctic Treaty was finalized, which finally saw the date of the light in 1961. So why South Pole is important is because of its isolation from sound, from vibration. Electromagnetic interference is not there. Light conditions facilitate studies all around the year, because for nearly 6 months, you have got complete sunlight there. So you can monitor the solar activities very nicely. It's an important station for laying the baseline studies on the anthropogenic factors, and also for atmospheric emissions that take place from other areas, because this formulates the baseline of all the scientific data that is there for on which the future studies can be done. And an area of about 45,350 square kilometer, it is declared as a protected area. It is called Antarctic Specially Protected Area, ASPA. And people generally are not allowed to go there without taking proper permission, proper care, so that the scientific values, intrinsic values of the South Pole are not disturbed. I will also like to touch you about India in Antarctic. Of course, Dr. Harsh Gupta is there. He knows most of these things, but I will like to touch upon a point. Very few people know that who was the first person who visited Antarctic and who visited the South Pole first. There are several versions. If you go to the Google, you will find several names like Colonel Bajaj and some others. But I have fished out several people, who have been to South Pole, not only to Antarctic, to South Pole itself, and not in 70s, but also already in 60s. So the first person among them is Dr. Giriraj Sirohi. He was in South Pole for about 100 days. And because he was a plant pathologist, and because of his good work, one of a point in the Antarctic is named after him. It is called as Sirohi Point. Another person who was there in 60s is a naval lieutenant, Lieutenant Ramcharan. He didn't go to South Pole. He accompanied the famous explorer Law from Australia, and he was in their ship. It went around most of the part of the Antarctic. He was sent as a first Indian to see how is the atmospheric conditions in Antarctic and what is the navigation problems, how a developing country can land in Antarctic if time comes. Then there was another person from PRL, Dr. Paramjit Singh Sehra. He was basically a meteorologist, and he was deputed to Antarctic, and along with the Russians. He went around Antarctic in the Russian ship, and he does claim that he's the first person, but I have my doubts. Then Colonel Bajaj is there. He is a person who skied all through the Antarctic, South Pole, from the Indian station. He also tried in 1984 when he was a member of the Indian expedition, but that time he didn't succeed. Then there's a girl, Reena Kaushal Dharamshaktu. She's a rare lady who has also gone to Mount Everest, and she also skied all the way to the South Pole, but she was not part of an Indian expedition. She was part of a New Zealand all-ladies expedition. And then in the year when we went to South Pole, there was also an Army adventure team headed by Colonel Anand. They also started from the Trans-Antarctic region, and they reached South Pole 1 month after us. But it was a full-fledged army team, and it was sponsored by the Ministry of Defense. It is not counted as a scientific expedition to South Pole. So in short, I have tried to tell you what happened in the Indian part of the expedition. So in the 4th expedition, Colonel Bajaj tried, but he had vehicles, but unfortunately they couldn't go more than 200 kilometers, so they had to come back. There were some problems in the vehicles and in the blizzards, and the people had problems in the frostbite and ice. In the 7th expedition, 2 gentlemen, and they were with me also, Colonel Major Lohumi, now he's a colonel, at that time he was a major, and Captain Patole. These 2 men were deputed to find a route to the South Pole. They camped with us in Humboldt, and they could go to some far away, but unfortunately they couldn't cross the plateau. And then in the 19th expedition, Major Sarup, the same gentleman who could finally go to South Pole with his team, he tried to reach and find out a track or traverse to the South Pole. Sorry, he took 2 snow scooters and 2 piston bully. Piston bully is a vehicle, which we generally operate in Antarctic. And they reached up to polar plateau, 70 degrees, 11 degrees south. The pole is at 90 degrees. So you can still imagine that there was a gap of 20 degrees latitude between the last point that they reached and the exact position of the South Pole. So now coming to our position, I must give the full credit of this expedition to the Ministry of Earth Sciences. Had the secretary that time, Dr. Shailesh Nayak, not visited the Antarctic, possibly this expedition would not have gone. So in fact, when he went there in 2009 and 10, I also happened to be there. And then we showed him a vehicle and we told him, sir, this is a vehicle which can go to South Pole. He didn't believe. He said, how are you so sure? Then we told him, sir, this is a vehicle which supplies the fuel to the midpoint, which is located at 83 degrees south. And then we raised the points, can we try? He said, well, if you want, you can. And you won't believe that between 2009 and 2010, we just had about 8 months. And within this period of 8 months, we didn't ask for any additional money. We didn't ask for any additional support. We told him that we will manage within our own Antarctic expeditions. And very hectic activities took place during these days. And it was in 2010, the foundation day of the Earth Science Ministry, when the then Minister Prithviraj Chauhan announced that India will take an expedition to South Pole. And we were really surprised because this statement coming from the minister made us much more active that yes, now we must try to fulfill it. And then all the activities, all the planning activities started. And I listed some of those things. We had to put a team together. We had no team before July. We had to finalize the vehicles. We had no idea of what type of vehicles, how many vehicles will be required, what will be the fuel, how the fuel will be taken, whether we have to take a fuel tanker with us or we can manage without that. What is the route? Because none of the Indian team had gone to South Pole till then. And then permissions we had to seek, because you can't go to South Pole without seeking permission from the US Antarctic program. And then the Indians, institutions, those who will go to Antarctic, we also had to ask their own institutions, because they will also have, there's a bureaucratic system, you have to take permissions from different ministries and all that. Then procurement of the essentials, normal Antarctic dress, won't do in the South Pole. We have had to special equipment, special dresses, and then the flagging of the expedition, that itself was a big thing. And if we had to make a point in this, it had to be flagged by Delhi, and in Goa at both the places. So in short, this team was finalized very quickly. And we took, we concentrated on the theme that we were looking forward. Glaciology and geomorphology was the main field. Geomagnetics was another field. Coordination, instrumentation, logistics was another field. Ice scoring, taking small samples for paleoclimatic studies was another field. We need to have a doctor with us, because something if happens, there has to be a medical doctor. And then there have to be some vehicle mechanics. So in short, we've selected all these 8 people who had specialized in these fields, which is listed in the last column. And then there was a problem that we can't take a number of fleet of vehicles. We had to take only about 4 vehicles. We purchased 1 vehicle, and then we took 3 vehicles on hire. And the game was that we took these vehicles from Iceland, because they specialized in these Arctic trucks, the truck which had a very high suspension, special wheels, and they could go in the icy terrain with a lot of sastruggis are there, ground is uneven, because as you know, there's no road, there's no track. So you have to make your own track. So we also had to have a very solid GPS control and also a GPR. Because if you are going in the month of November and December, and if you are not careful, you can land into the crevasses. So all these arrangements were done. And finally, this is a team which we put together. I can name these people. Dr. Murthy, Mr. Murthy, he was a vehicle mechanic. Ashit Sen, Dr. Malhotra, myself, Dr. Beg, Dr. Thamban, Dr. Ajay Dhar, and there's one more person who is not here, Mr. Surat Singh. He was also a vehicle mechanic. So these 8 people, they were given different tasks, scientific tasks, logistic tasks, coordination, and then we were all ready for the expedition. Fortunately for us, Dr. Ashit is here, Ashit Sen is here. I'm happy to see him here. So fortunately, about 2 years back, one of the Norwegians, they took an expedition to the South Pole. So we contacted Norwegians, because the Norwegian station in Antarctic is very close to our Indian station. They gave us the GPS controls, but it didn't satisfy us, because it was traversing through a lot of crevasses zone, and we wanted to avoid this zone. So we had our own positions, and in this GPS locations, the vehicle people, they guided us quite a lot. This was the type of the vehicle that we got from Finland, and it was reassembled in Finland. Oh, sorry, Iceland, not Finland. I'm sorry for that. And we put a special logo, because this was for the first time that an Indian vehicle would be traversing to South Pole. And with a lot of fanfare, this logo was created. And the credit should go to the, I think it was Javed Beg and his team, which created this logo. And then we had 3 another vehicles of the same type, which we hired, along with the mechanics and some, drivers from Iceland, which gave us this strength that, well, we will be in safe hands. A launching of the expedition was done in simultaneously in Delhi. The then Minister Sivaraj Chauhan handed over the flag to our secretary then, Dr. Shailesh Naik. And because all of us were in Goa, the time was short. We had to take a flight to Cape Town. And then the governor of Goa, Mr. Sandhu, he was kind enough to come all the way to NCOR and launch the expedition. A very well coordinated program was there, and this was broadcasted all over, and even BBC recorded this event, and they gave a very good attachment to this. This is some sort of a pre-expedition preparation, and I can find Ashit laughing, because most of the things, we had to assemble, we had to procure in Cape Town, and we had to take a flight. And you can see here, there's a mention here, Antarctic flight. No number is there, because it is not a scheduled flight. It's a small, Russian plane, which is not meant for people. It basically is a cargo plane. There is no windows. So once you sit in the plane, you can't see anything outside. You can only watch a small video, which the Russian pilot will put for you. And he has a small camera at the nose of the plane. And so you can see how and where the plane is going. There's nothing to see excepting the icy terrain. But then you feel that you are flying. So all the things were procured in Cape Town, and then they were put into the special cartons. They were ferried to a small trailer, and then it was sent to the plane. And this is the screen in the plane, the Antarctic plane, which we were there, which took us. And this was a screen that was visible to us. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be landing in Antarctic in 45 minutes. And there are no crew except one person who does shifts between the pilot and announcing that, well, you are reading, change your dresses, because in the plane, you can't put all the Antarctic dress. So once you are very close to the Antarctic coast, you have to change your dress. He says here, please change into your Antarctic clothing. So you have to put all the clothing, because the outside temperature is minus 13 to minus 20 degrees Celsius. So this is a vehicle which was being downloaded from the plane. You can see here. It's not only the men that the plane carry, they also carry the machinery like this. And then this is a starting point of our expedition, Maitri Station of India. You can see the Maitri Station over here. There was a lot of excitement in the people. The entire team was assembled here. And even the penguins were there, Generally, penguins don't come to Maitri station because their location is about 80 kilometers away from the Maitri station. They practically live in the coast, but possibly they came to see us off. And then, as Indians, we must have a proper puja and proper send-off. We fortunately had 2 lady members in the station. So they applied, they did some small puja and they did tilak on us. And this is the entire team which was flagged off from Maitri station on a day which was 13th of November. And many people said that 13th is not a good day. It's not an auspicious day. Why are you going? But we didn't believe that because we had already lost 2 days, We were ready to go on 11th. But what happened was that in very close to our station, one of the team of the visitors, one of the visitors, he fell in a crevice. He fell in a crevice, and we were the only people who were having a vehicle with a crane. So these people, they requested us, kindly spare your vehicle so that we can take that person out of the crevice. So we had to delay our departure by 2 days, and that person finally, fortunately, was saved. So now our journey to South Pole starts. You can see this is a small oasis which is called as Shimakar Oasis, and this is the place where our station Maitri is here. And if you continue to go over here south of this point, you will reach South Pole. It's around 2,500 kilometers from here. And very interestingly, you can see there's a small tongue of the ice sheet which is descending onto this ice-free mass. And this is a tongue of a glacier. We monitor scientifically to see how it is going, how it is fluctuating out, because during the glacial maxima, this entire area was covered, and this tongue must be debouching into the ice shelf over here. Now, this is the area where generally the ship comes, This is the location of Dakshin Gangotri, our first station. This is our Maitri. This is a coastal mountain chain, which comes as a barrier between reaching the plateau. You have to cross a plateau before reaching South Pole. And plateau you can't reach unless you cross these mountains. It is a very difficult proposition to cross these mountains because there are very narrow glaciers, which pass through these very narrow margins. And Sumokan Glacier is one of such glacier which you can see because the speed of the glacier is tremendous. And normally you cannot even imagine to cross these glaciers because there will be a lot of crevasses, and if you try, anything can happen. But then we already had some traverses, and we knew because of the traverses of Dr. Chaturvedi and others in previous expeditions that if you follow the western edge of the Sumokan Glacier, possibly you can reach the polar plateau. So that is what we were trying to do. But before that, I must tell you one very interesting story. In fact, 2 stories. The one was that once we started our expedition, this is of course the topographical map to tell you the contours. And you can see here what is the spacing of the contours. And as you cross the glaciers, the contours becomes very close. That means the steepness is very steep. From 1,500 meters from zero, practically zero sea level, you have to cross about 2,500 meters level, and in a very short distance. So a huge type of a terrain with a very steep gradient you have to cross. So I come back to my story here. So when we were going on this track, I was in this vehicle, and our colleague Ashit Sen, he was also here. And then we stopped for nature's call for a few seconds. And then, we started moving again. Each vehicle had 2 people. Ashit, he was sitting in the back. And myself and Ajay, we were in the front of the vehicle. Ajay was driving most probably. And Ashit was in the back. So after we were finished with the nature's call, we started our vehicles and we started moving forward. And because the time was at a premium, we started at a very big speed. After reaching about 5 to 10 kilometers, one of the Iceland driver, he shouted, "Hey, gentlemen, we find a man waving at the back." So we started laughing. How can a person be left in this terrain? Nobody can be there. So, but he said, no, you please stop and you see what is happening. So we just stopped out of curiosity and we talked to the Ashit. Ashit, are you there? And we got no reply. So we found that Ashit had got down from the vehicle, and we did pick him up. And then when we went back and when we picked Ashit, he was in terrible state. He was shivering, he was cold, he was crying. And then we tried to pacify him. He said, you just imagine what would have happened to me if you would not have returned. And that gave us a real bum skin in our legs. And we thank God that we could stop and we could take him back with us, because otherwise, anything could have happened to him, because at that cold temperature without a shelter, you cannot imagine the things that would have happened. One more thing at this spot I would like to share with you is that we were not having a very strong search and rescue team with us. And no expedition to South Pole goes without a search and rescue protocol. And search and rescue protocol means that we had to have somebody at the back end, and we had to pay him money and all that. And we were not so much, budget was not with us. So we had a bargain with the team which fuels the South Pole station, which supplies the fuel to the South Pole station. So we told them that, okay, we will give you the labor park. They require some laborers. We will give you the laborers and you give us the cover. So they agreed that, okay, you help us in downloading the barrels of the fuel when we reach the South Pole station or the midpoint. And in turn, if something happens to any one of you, we will try to take care, try to bring you back to the mainland. So with that, confidence, we had that, okay, something is behind us. And if something unfortunately happens, we won't be buried like Scott. Somebody will come and take us back. So this is in general the terrain, where what you have to, Javed Beg has also joined. Welcome, Beg. So this is a terrain, that you have to traverse. And you can visualize that in this sort of a terrain, here you can see the horizon. So you can make out a difference that, okay, you have to move in that direction. But what happens in a slide when blizzard is there, or when snow whiteout is there, this demarcating line, excuse me, I have to put the battery. Just give me a few seconds.
Hello, good evening, everyone. I believe that there was a technical issue with Dr. Rasik Ravindra. He'll be joining shortly.
No issue. He told he's connecting the power source. He told no issues.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you. Just it will take 2-3 minutes. Rasik Ravindra sir informed that there is some issue with the battery. He's just in 2-3 minutes he will be joining. Just for information of members.
Okay, I'm back.
Welcome, sir. Yeah, welcome, sir.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm sorry for the.
No. It happens. It happens.
So I was at this slide, and I was telling you that.
When you cross this, you showed us the vehicles.
Yeah. So this is a, this one. Okay, was it the one?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so from this, we moved ahead, and then I told you that incident of Ashit, and then we moved ahead, and then I was telling you about this line, horizon, that if there's a small snow blizzard, there's a difference between the sky and the horizon, this surface, it vanishes, and then you don't know where you are, whether you are on the sky or you are on the land. And most of the people, those who have been to Antarctic, they are really scared of this white out business, because it totally disorients you. You do not know whether you are moving north or moving south or where you are going. But then there's a beauty in this sort of a terrain, where there's a vacuum, there's a total emptiness. But within this emptiness also, you have got a slight, sound, and that is a sound of silence. And if you're lucky, you can really appreciate that sound of silence. You just have to meditate for a couple of seconds, and that experience that you get in those few seconds, I think one has to travel to this terrain to visualize that. It is unprecedented. This is the silhouette that you see, nearly the evening part when you are reaching the plateau. And then this is the height of the plateau that you are supposed to cross. And even the view of this, it makes you scared that can your vehicles cross this much of the steep gradient. But then we did cross them. And these are the successive slides, where you can find one after the other. And finally, you reach the plateau. We didn't camp for nearly 16 to 17 hours in the beginning. We straight away we are going ahead, but then we had to make a small halt, because after all, vehicles also require some sort of a rest. And when we pitched our tent for the first time, and then we thought that we will cook something. In fact, we didn't have to cook any fresh food. We had brought pre-cooked food from Cape Town. We just had to warm it. So when we were putting the things together, we found that our gas cylinder and the gas stove, they won't match. The cylinders were from a different agency, and our other things were from different agencies. So, and the regulator was from a different source, and the cylinder was from a different source. And it was a big, shock to us that how such a minor thing, it escaped our attention. And if that was not there, then, we were practically starved, because you could not melt the ice to get water. And without drinking water, you just can't go any step further. But fortunately, the people from the Iceland, and some Russians were there. They had some thing with us. So, and we had a microwave oven also with us. So we started that with a small generator, portable generator. We started our oven, microwave oven, and we could do some things. But then we overcame this difficulty after some time. I'll tell you afterwards. So then after the next day, when we started again, and this is such a monotonous terrain, you know, there's not even a tree, not a landmark. So sometimes, you know, you are driving, but you feel sleep. And then you do not know whether you have lost track because no vehicles you can see. And then you have to talk on the Wi-Fi, or you can talk on the your systems, you know, that walkie-talkie that you have. And you ask the other people, where are you? Can you guide us? Then he will stop until you join all of them. And then you move ahead. And this is a general, you know, the grooves that you make in the snow. Sometimes you feel that you are spoiling the terrain of Antarctic. And these marks, you know, they will remain there. They will get frozen. And they will remain there till they are again covered by a snowstorm or something like that. Now, this is the thing that I was telling you. This support did come to us from a company which is called ALCI. They are the people who ferry people to different stations in the aircraft, and they also touch a runway very close to Maitri. It's called a Novo runway, and we requested them to get some things from Maitri station. So they brought the right type of the cylinders and also some cooked food from our station. And so it was a feast for us, you know, for some days. Then we could eat pre-cooked food like paratha and aloo and all those things which you can never imagine to eat in a terrain like this is one such, you know, halt where we are using the space in between two vehicles, and we are putting up this stove with a cylinder, and we are heating up the paratha that the Maitri station has sent us. So these are the things, you know, which you can never imagine. You continue your journey, and then you realize that, well, you must move together, because if something happens, then the other team must come to help you out. And then you also have to avoid crevices like this, because if you're gone, then it's a very difficult task. Nobody can help you. Now, these are small, you know, minor ice ridges that I was talking to you. These are called as sastrugis. Now, sometimes they will be 1 meter, 1.5 meter high, and they have got a very razor sharp edges. So anytime when your tires go through this, you can damage your axle, you can damage your tires. And it did happen that most of the time, you know, our axles of the vehicles, they broke down. We had spares, but not as many as we could imagine, you know, that we will have so many broken axles. And this is a very rare picture, you know, when the sun goes down for a very short time. This is the month of November, you know, when there is light for all the 24 hours. But for a few minutes or for a few minutes, the sun will go down, and then you will have a statue like this. Now here, I just want to show you what happens to the man and machine. Both suffer. It's not that only men suffer. I think the machines suffer more than men. So this is one of our Icelander. You can see what is he's suffering with extreme cold. And these are all vehicles. All the axle has gone. Here also another vehicle with a broken axle. Then you have to stop, change the entire wheels, change the axles, and then move ahead. Another thing was there that we didn't carry any fuel container with us, because if you carry fuel, then you have to leave some of the cargo. And we already had a very limited cargo to sustain us for about 1 month, 8 people for 1 month, or our food stuff, our other things, clothing, tents and everything, vehicle spares. So we couldn't carry a full-fledged fuel tankers or barrels. But we could always bank upon some of the buried barrels which were left en route South Pole. So these are some of those barrels, which were en route, and we knew their positions thanks to the ALCI, the company which supplies the fuel to the South Pole station. So they gave us these locations, and we could fill up fuel in our vehicles from these barrels. And this was also not an easy operation, because you had to put a crane, you have to dig up the barrel, you have to take them out, and taking out anything which is buried for more than a year in a totally ice-packed condition is a very, very tough job. But fortunately, we could take out a couple of barrels and we could refill our vehicles to get the food for the vehicles to reach our destination. And this was when we were very close to the South Pole. I think this was around 83 degrees south. This was our last southernmost camp at 89 degrees 7 minutes. You can see the broad daylight, and you can also see some of the small ice cabins that people have made. It was from this position that we, rang up the South Pole manager, Martin. We told him that we are coming, and there was no response. So we kept on trying, because unless we get permission from him, we cannot go ahead. Finally, one lady, replied back, and she said she doesn't know anything about Indians coming to South Pole. We were shocked that reaching 89 degrees south, and then somebody telling us that you don't have a permission and nobody knows in the South Pole station that you are coming. So we didn't know what to do. We told her that, okay, you try to contact your manager, station manager, Martin, and we have a conversation with him. And the head of the US Antarctic program, Dr. Penny, she knows about it. She said, well, there's a difference of 24 hours time between what time you are logging and what is our time. Because at South Pole, they maintain the New Zealand time. So there's a time lag of nearly 24 hours. So we waited for some time, and then this gentleman got up. He was apologetic. He said, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't convey the message to my people. You are welcome, and I will send a lead vehicle, your welcome vehicle, and then he will escort you to our station. So there was some sort of a, relief to us, knowing that, well, somebody is there to take us. This is again the team members. I don't know if you can recognize. There's one, Thamban is there, Dr. Thamban, NCPOR, Dr. Beg, who is here with us. He's the Murthy, and this is me. Everybody of us suffered, chilblains. You can see Thamban's nose. It took him more than 2 months to come back to normal. Same was the fate with Javed, with Dr. Malhotra, and others, Ashit. So finally, we did reach South Pole after about 9 days of running on the vehicles with only 3 or 4 night halts, round the clock driving without any proper night halt, without changing the dress, without taking a bath, without brushing our teeth, and eating only whatever we could, lay our hands on. This is a ceremonial South Pole, where everybody is supposed to come, take a snap, and announce the arrival in the South Pole. One of the interesting things is this point, is exactly at South Pole, and it keeps on moving at a speed of nearly it's a huge speed. Pardon? Well, so since this is at one point, if you circle this, that means you have encircled the entire globe. So some of us, and Javed Beg leading us, we encircled this, and like Ganesha, taking encircling Lord Shiva and saying that he has taken the round of entire universe. So we did the same thing. All of us took a round of this ceremonial pole and got satisfied that, well, we have encircled the entire globe. So this was the team at the geographic South Pole. These are the barracks in which we were asked to take a shelter for about a couple of hours. So we took a shelter here, we took a bath in the South Pole, had a good dinner there, and then the next day we started back. This is that picture on the ceremonial pole. And this is the welcome that we got at the South Pole station. And this is the Martin, who is the station manager over here. And others are the team members of the Indian expedition. This is general data about South Pole. I don't think most of you must be interested, but you should know that the mean temperature is -49, annual precipitation is 7 centimeters, and elevation is nearly 3,000 meters. Some of the scientific observations we had to take, because after all, it was a scientific expedition. We did snow surface feature studies. We had the mapping of the surface geomorphology. We monitored the lithological variations of the small lunatics, small rock outcrops that we could find out. We also mapped the geomorphological observations, GPR sections we undertook. And we also collected some aerosol data and some small shallow ice cores. So these are the results of some of the meteorological observations that we had for all these 9 days together. some of this snow surface morphology. These are the sastrugis. This is a plateau. And most of the meteorites, you can locate at these points because they have a tendency of getting concentrated at the junction of the polar plateau and this normal continental ice sheet over here. But since we were in the vehicles and we had a strict time schedule, we couldn't stop for searching of the meteorites. But we did recommend to our people that, well, these are the sites where the future meteorite search should be launched. And these are some of the geological outcrop that we mapped, because generally the teams don't come this much south to map the terrain. We took samples. We also mapped some of these rock types. And GPR traverses was another big thing that we did, and our expert, Dr. Ashit, he was responsible for taking a number of GPR traverses to find out the depth of the base rock. And these are some of the results of those GPR traverses. Some of the shallow ice cores also we retrieved. And some of the aerosol data we collected from these instruments that we had taken with us all through. Well, with this, we returned practically short of a month. And when we returned, it was naturally a big feeling that we have done something. And it was capped by our call given by the then Prime Minister, Dr. Manmohan Singh, the Minister, Mr. Kapil Sibal, and our own Secretary, Dr. Shailesh Nayak. They hosted a small welcome party to us, and we are formally closing the South Pole expedition. So the only takeaway message I can give is that there is no place on the earth like Antarctic. If anybody can't go to South Pole, at least we must try to go to Antarctic. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Mesmerizing talk.
Absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a treat to the eyes and ears to listen the story. Sir, if you can stop screen sharing, that will be good. Yeah, okay.
Really amazing, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Very well done, Rasik. Beautiful.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
I just want to check. You see, there's a book by Urmi Popat.
Sir.
How correct or true is that?
So actually, when we returned, we found out that Urmi was a girl who owned a press. She had a publication. She is basically an architect.
Yeah.
And she had taken her parents to the Antarctic Peninsula.
Okay.
We saw her publication, and I invited her to NCOR, and I gave her this job. I said, you take my diary and you publish it. So she did a wonderful job. She did a wonderful job. She even interviewed you also, sir.
Yeah.
And she gave a good account of my diary and the history of the Antarctic expeditions. Yes, sir.
Absolutely. Very well done. My compliments, and I'm so happy that you joined us this evening, spared your time. And actually, we need to make more people, youngsters, aware of Antarctica, the challenges it has, the solitude, and the deafening quietness of Antarctica.
Exactly, sir.
So, where is the Beg? Javed Beg is around?
He's around, sir. He was there in the audience. I don't know whether he's still there.
Okay.
Good evening, sir. I'm here.
Yeah, he's there, sir. He's there.
Okay, Javed. So how many times have you been to Antarctica now?
Almost 12 times now.
My God.
Who be the who is person in India who is visited Antarctica most? Are you the one, Javed?
It's 8 o'clock.
No, certainly not. There are others. And there are a couple of them. I think Ajay Dhar is one of them, Arun Chaturvedi, and there'll be a couple of them who have been going there.
Prabhu Matondkar, where is he now? Any idea?
Sir, after his first twin wintering side by side, I don't think he went again.
Okay.
But then there are people, sir, who have been who have done 3 winterings together. There are certain people who have done more than, like people from IIG Dr. Alango is there, Dr. Jiva is there. I think they have done more than 2-3 winterings.
You see, when we went to Antarctica in 1983, we visited the Russian station, and it is rare you get people to see. So we had taken the helicopter to go there, the Albert, the Chetak, and we spent 2-3 hours with them. And then I found that the leader told me that he has been there for the last 3 years.
My God.
He has not gone back. I said, what keeps you here so good? He said, no pollution and adequate vodka. So he's just enjoying.
Yes.
So it's a different world. And I think we are all very blessed to have been to Antarctica.
Yes. Certainly, sir. Certainly.
What nature can do, what nature is. And thanks a lot for such a beautiful talk.
Thank you, sir. My pleasure, sir. My pleasure.
Sir, one question I have, that bacterial samples, which organization collected the Arctic from the Arctic? You showed a slide.
CCMB.
Okay.
So that is from Antarctic, not from South Pole.
Okay.
CCMB, Dr. Shivaji has published a number of papers. He's a very coveted scientist,
Yeah.
He has got more than 30-40 publications and some new species also.
Okay, great.
In fact, more than 40 species have been discovered by Indians.
Correct.
New
Great,
species.
great.
Hello, sir. Sir, myself is Milan Kumar Sharma from Central University of Punjab, Bathinda, sir. Sir, I just like to know, sir, whether there is any work on sedimentology from Indian sites or any paleontology who is currently working in Antarctica, sir.
There is a lot of work on sedimentology. A lot of work is there. Dr. Srivastav is there. Dr. Khare has published work, and Dr. Asthana has published. You have a number of people. You can search sedimentology in Antarctica, and you will get a number of papers in Google. But paleontology, as such, nobody has worked because the area where we work, it is not a terrain where the fossil-bearing rocks are there. These are all Proterozoic rocks. So we don't get fossils there unless you go to the Western Antarctic or Antarctic Peninsula.
Sir, is there any provision that we can correlate and we can collaborate with the others teams so that we can work on paleontology or some other things, sir?
Of course. You can get in touch with the program director of NCPOR, Dr. Rahul Mohan, and he will put you through to the different people.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Lot of petrological and geochemical work has been done by Naresh Pant and the group.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Delhi University.
Dr. Rasik, did you map any paleosols there in Antarctica?
No, sir. No. We are basically mapping only the hard rocks and 10 glaciers.
Okay. You are evergreen as always.
Thank you for your compliments. Thank you.
I'm sure, sir, after your lecture, many people will dream of doing work in Arctic and Antarctica.
Sure, I think we must, as Dr. Gupta said, this is a time that the youngsters must go,
Sure.
In fact, when I went to South Pole, I was already on extension. That was at the age of 63. So the youngsters must go.
Great.
Well, I think we have held up Dr. Harsh Gupta for a very long time.
Questions, Dr. Sushmitha and Dr. Rupini, you can. Yeah. Dr. Rupini and Dr. Sushmitha?
Yes, sir.
Sushmitha is here.
Yes,
If
sir.
there are
Yes,
no
sir.
questions, you can maybe propose the vote of thanks.
Yeah, Dr. Sushmitha, please.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. Respected Professor Harsh Gupta, President, Geological Society of India, Dr. Rasik Ravindra, Dr. Bansal, Vice President, GSI, Professor Banerjee, Dr. Godavari, all esteemed members of the Geological Society of India and members of the GSI Delhi chapter, a very good evening to you all. It gives me immense pleasure to deliver the vote of thanks for this online webinar. I extend my gratitude to Professor Harsh Gupta, the President, Geological Society of India, to take out time from his busy schedule and to grace this webinar. I also thank our distinguished speaker and expert, Dr. Rasik Ravindra, for his excellent lecture and deliberations on India's maiden expedition to the South Pole. Sir, you vividly detailed on the icy continent, and that is actually practically closed for the permanent human habitation on a long-term basis. And you also detailed on the legendary explorers who made attempts to conquer the South Pole, and also we saw some of the significant historical values of the South Pole. And the PPT, it was so beautiful to see the snow and also the penguins that greeted your entire team. And for the past 1 hour, we actually felt that we were, there at Antarctica. So that was the kind of the presentation that has made an impact on all of us. You also showed us your experiences, the crevices that can even pose dangers for people there, and also all the scientific observations that you and your team did. And I was also really excited about the bacterial diversity and the studies that have been done by several of the scientists, even at the CCNP. Thank you, sir, for the wonderful presentation. I will thank Dr. Godavari and Sri Rajendran from the GSI for all their support, and I thank Dr. From Delhi University for designing this poster and for all his efforts for this webinar and the technical support that he has extended. I would also like to thank all the members of the GSI Delhi chapter for actively contributing to the success of this chapter and for their support extended to all the academic activities. And finally, I would like to express my gratitude to all the participants today for this webinar, for their presence, their patient listening, and contribution to make this webinar a great success. Thank you all. Thanks once again.
Thank you, Dr. Sushmitha. Thank you.
Very well done. Very well done.
Thank you, sir.
Bye-bye.
Bye, sir.
Thank
Bye.
you very
Bye, sir.
much. Thank you, Harshita, sir.